Hello everyone, Madu Koga here. السلام عليكم جميعا. مرحبا بكم في هذا الفيديو. سأتحدث عن تاريخي في اللغات العربية، وعن اللهجات التي أتعلموها الآن. Okay, in this video I'm just gonna go over a brief history of me with the Arabic language, of my learning the Arabic language, and the particular dialects I decided to focus on. So, I might have touched on this in previous videos, but I wanted to do a new video about it. So you can see his map is, Arabic language. This is about the area it covers, more or less. So I actually started, I started learning in, I want to say around 2001, so a long time, almost 20 years ago. But the problem is, it wasn't, I wasn't, ما كنت ثابتا عليها. I wasn't, I can't remember, I don't even know how to say that in English. I wasn't consistent about it, because, right, so like year 2001, 2002, that was kind of what my focus was. I was also into Italian at the time. But then, after that, I started getting into other Asian languages, and I took a long hiatus from Arabic. And by the way, at first I was learning Egyptian Arabic mostly, just because that I wasn't, at that time when I first started, I wasn't familiar with, the about the different dialectology of the language. And so Egyptian Arabic was, that most of the material I could find was in Egyptian Arabic. And I had a lot of Egyptian friends at the time, so this made sense. So yeah, then after my hiatus, I want to say at the year, let's see, around 2006 or 2007. Yeah, maybe around that. Maybe I want to say late 2006, maybe, or early 2007, around that time. I had a resurgent, a resurge of interest in it, and I started learning it again, partly due to me, partly due to my interest in the Palestinian cause, and I had Palestinian friends. I still do. So naturally, I gravitated more towards Palestinian Arabic, which technically is a southern variety of Levantine Arabic. And of course, Levantine Arabic is pretty vast, a lot of subcategories. But yeah, I guess I had this book which I think was based on the dialect, how they spoke it around Al-Quds in Jerusalem. So yeah, I was focusing on Palestinian Arabic for a few years, and I gradually shifted to the way they speak in Gaza, in Qita' Gaza, the Gaza Strip, because I made some friends from there, and I got really involved, with them in that area. Mostly it was through friends, because there's no material out there for the particular way they speak there in the Gaza Strip. Anyhow, after that, I want to say around, let's see, 2008, or wait, was it 2009? Yeah, anyway, around then is when I started taking Arabic classes in college. Yeah, I want to say, yeah, it's probably 2008. I started taking Arabic classes in college, and of course, this was Fusha, the modern standard Arabic, or the literary standard, or yeah, standard literary Arabic, which which I kind of wanted to. I was getting more focused into that at the time, and so I went to a community college. I had a great teacher, professor, from Sudan, and as you could guess, around this time, my interest in the Sudanese dialect was peaking. But I didn't pursue it that much because my focus was on Fusha, the standard variety. So I took pretty much all the classes they had there for the Arabic language, and after that, I kind of around that time, uh, I also maybe around 2010 ish, I was getting into Yucatec Maya, so not so much Arabic anymore. Although I wish I would have just stayed doing Arabic consistently, even though I was interested in other languages. But at the time, the way my mind was, it was just either all or none. So yeah, because if it wasn't for that, I might be a little better than I am. But so yeah, I took another hiatus. I want to say from 2010 until fairly recently, actually. Um, well, no, actually, I still was. Maybe not from 2010. I think the hiatus officially started like 2012. I want to say. Yeah, let's just say 2012. I didn't really get back to it until recently. Maybe. I mean, actually, I was off and on. I didn't completely leave it, but it was off and on. But I didn't incorporate it into my learning routine, my studying routine until fairly recently, like this year again. So, I'm a bit rusty, and part of it was a resurgence of my interest in Sudanese Arabic because I never really singled out to study like I did Egyptian and Levantine. So that's what I'm doing now. And I have so now, okay, so if you see my map, I have three main focuses for Arabic. First one is standard literary Arabic, and by extension classical Arabic. Um, all right, so my focus now, as far as Arabic language is concerned, are the standard literary Arabic, Sudanese. Um, as you can see, I have Saidi here too. That I kind of want to learn alongside it, just because it's pretty similar. Although I don't think there's any material to learn Saidi Arabic. Um, but yeah, so focus on varieties of Nubia region, the rest of Sudan, Saidi of Egypt, and northern Eritrea, which would fall under Sudanese Arabic. And I don't know about Chadian, honestly. Probably not. I'm just gonna focus on Sudan because Chadian is kind of, it's a lot like Sudanese Arabic. I would say it's a little more simplified. But yeah, then the other one, as I have here, is Levantine slash Bedawi. So southern focus, especially Gaza, and Bedawi dialects. So I bring this up because it's interesting actually that you can. Well, I'm going to do this in its own video, but I'm convinced that Arabic dialects or languages, however you want to call them, it's a dialect continuum. It's and instead of just like rigid boundaries between each dialect, they kind of flow into each other. As with it's the case with a lot of languages in the world. So Arabic isn't any different in that sense. So just to give you an example, you could kind of make a line, draw a line through any any region in the Arabic speaking world that which would be a dialect continuum. So that dialect continuum basically just means that the dialects get, you know, as you go further from a certain area, the the dialectal variation is greater. As you when you get closer, it's not as great. Even though it might be considered a separate dialect, but it has some features of surrounding dialects. So good examples, I could kind of draw, a line from Palestine all the way to Chad. Um, so they kind of flow into each other. So, okay, we have Levantine Arabic up here. Also covers Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Palestine. But so Levantine Arabic is divided into northern and southern. And you could divide that even further into urban dialects and rural dialects and Bedouin dialects, which are nomadic. Um, and The urban dialects tend to be more uniform across the region, whereas the you find most variation in the rural and nomadic dialects. Okay, um, so southern Levantine Arabic includes Palestinian Arabic, which borders. So this variety borders on what's called Bedawi Arabic, which is around this area, and Bedawi is I mean, it's a general term that means Bedouin, but it usually they refer to this particular region though, the Sinai, parts of Saudi Arabia, and coastal Egypt. Probably goes into Sudan too. So I would just think of an example off the top of my head. Like in Levantine proper, like in the urban dialects, they'll say "Shubitsawi," like "What are you doing?" Then you could say um, "Ana aqra," "Ana aqra," I'm reading, or "Baqra," I'm reading, because so in standard literary Arabic it would be "Mada taf'al," and then you would say "Ana aqra," "Ana aqra'u," I'm reading. So in the urban Levantine dialects, they take away the qaf as they do in the Egyptian as well. Whereas in southern Levantine, especially when it borders on the Bedawi regions, they'd say something more like Ish Bitsawi, Ana Bagra, Bagra, I'm reading, Ana Agra. They pronounce the Qa as a Ga, so it's not a Qaf, it's a Gaf for them. And then Bedawi, so Bedawi is pretty much like an intermediate dialect between Levantine and Hijazi, and maybe even Saidi, you can argue. Because then you get to Saidi Arabic, and they have the same thing, where it's kind of intermediate between Egyptian Arabic, which when they say Egyptian Arabic, they really mean like Nile Delta region, Lower Egypt, but Saidi is like the bulk of it, even though it's less people. So yeah, you can argue that Saidi Arabic is kind of intermediate between Bedawi, Egyptian, or I'll just call it Nile Delta, and Sudanese, because it shares characteristics with all of them, just as Bedawi Arabic shares characteristics with its surrounding varieties. And then obviously you got Sudanese Arabic down here, which so for you would say like for how like what are you doing? I'm reading. Who would say بتساوي شنو? What are you doing? قاعد قاعد أقرأ, or أنا بقرأ, I'm reading. So it's really similar to Bedawi and even more similar to Saidi. There obviously Sudan has its own history. It's been heavily influenced by Nubian. So, but other than that, it's very consistent with more conservative Bedouin dialects of the Hijaz and the Sinai and the Said of Egypt. And then go west. West, of course, Chad. That's obviously connected to Sudanese Arabic. So I'll explain it better in a special video, but I just kind of want to give you an introduction and just kind of what like I'm doing, like what my focuses are. So you could say my focus is on this continuum that goes from from the Levant all the way down to Sudan. Like I said, I'm probably not going to get into Chad. And yeah, you could consider it a continuum. And yeah, I am bypassing Nile Delta Arabic because I think it's a bit different. You could there's yeah, there's still a continuum that goes that way, but I'm honestly not really interested in that variety of Arabic, even though it's definitely the most popular one. But yeah, so I kind of skipped that over. So I go from Levantine to Bedawi to Saidi to Sudanese proper. And yeah, that's basically it. Um, because at first I was really wanting to just learn every single variety of Arabic that's out there, but I realized that if I did that, I would have to not learn any other language. Arabic would have to be obviously, like aside from Spanish and English, Arabic would have to be like the only other one because that's a vast region. Especially when you go out west here, it's very very different. So yeah, and again, um, I should also mention that these two varieties, Sudanese and Levantine, and everything in between that I'm also going to be learning, is belongs to the Mashriqi group, um, as opposed to the Maghribi. So in Maghribi, in their colloquial, they call it Darja, and in Mashriqi, they call it Amiya. Um, so yeah, and so yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing. Like I said, there isn't a lot of like with Levantine Arabic and Sudanese. There's a good amount of material out there, but these in between ones are going to be a little harder to find material. I just have to find speakers. But so probably by default it'll just be Sudanese and Levantine. At both opposite ends of the spectrum here, of at least as far as what I'm learning. But yeah, it's interesting. It's something I want to explore further, like the intermediary dialects between the two, like the Bedawi one and the Saidi one. So if you guys have any information on those dialects, let me know. If you have any material, just comment below. And yeah, that's all. قد انتهى الحوار. إلى اللقاء. Until next time.